morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Steps to Soul podcast. Today, we're talking about buyers, and specifically, not all buyers are created equal. We're going to talk from tire kickers to closers. So today, we're here educating both you, buyers and sellers, on the spectrum of the type of buyers that are out there, who we're going to encounter, and trying to avoid the risk of wasting time, the wrong fit for the right business, and honestly, the traits that you want to recognize and also show as a buyer to be effective. Christopher, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well. I liked what you said, who we're going to encounter. That's a good way to put it. We never know who's coming through the door, do we?
We don't, and it does apply to different types of size of businesses, Main Street versus lower middle market. So in the lower middle market, not all deals are equal. Some are going to feel like Main Street deals that have a bigger volume. Some are going to feel like M&A deals are going to be a little bit more lower in price size. But there's different types of buyer for different types of size of businesses. There's still similar profiles on how they're going to be either a tire kicker, time waster, can close. But there are some nuances that we want to highlight. We talked about doing one episode on all of this, but we really felt like we need to divide it between Main Street and lower middle market because the differences that are there are important to highlight and I think can be an actual good thing for people to listen to. So first off, let's talk about the buyer landscape in the lower middle market. Often these are private individuals with a higher net wealth, right? You're not going to be buying a $5 to $10 million business if you don't have a good decent amount of personal net wealth already accumulated. You're going to have a lot of interest from these guys. The question is, do they have the capacity to fully fund it themselves individually if they have to get financing, right? Then you have the unfunded searchers, the funded searchers, the private equity groups, and the family office, strategic acquirers, and the closers. But let's talk a little bit after highlighting all of those, the private individuals, because I think that's the one that we see the most interest in the market, but maybe have the hardest barriers to entry, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. One thing is when a Main Street business goes on the market, whether it's you and I listing it or a business owner listing it themselves, you have this wave of interest, right? Because it is in this price range that a lot of people either can't afford or they think they can afford, right? That private individual we know those guys, they reach out to us all the time. And that's our job as brokers to qualify them. Are you a legitimate buyer? Are you financially qualified? Do you have everything you need to actually buy this business? But that wave of interest, it can feel overwhelming for us as brokers, and if you're a business owner that's going out and listing it on your own. How many inquiries can you expect on a great listing within the first month with a great
It
business?
can be a lot.
Yeah, you're going to hear from at least dozens of people, if not 100. You're going to have all these inquiries come in from all these different places. They're going to be calling you. They're going to be coming by your shop if you put it out there for everybody to see, which I highly don't recommend. But here's what most sellers don't realize. The vast majority of these inquiries, they're not going to lead anywhere. And that's what we do is we vet these buyers. Many are going to be that tire kicker that you mentioned, Brandon, people who like the idea of owning a business, but they have no planning done before that thought. They just want to own a business. They haven't put a business plan together. They haven't got their financing order. And so as a seller, if you're doing this on your own, your job or your broker's job is to separate the noise from the actual signal, from those signals. Because the smooth difference between a smooth sale and 6 months, 9 months of wasted time comes down to knowing who's real and who's just browsing, who's window shopping and reaching out, because it's very easy these days to fill out a form and click send. And next thing you know, you think you have an interested buyer. I hear from guys all the time. They reach out to me after they think they've already got a buyer interested. They say, hey, we got this guy. He just came through. In fact, I had one yesterday. I really did.
I did too.
Guy I worked with 3 months ago was trying to I gave him a valuation, wasn't in where he was ready to sell, but he reached out to me yesterday and said, hey, we have a very highly interested acquisition proposition. My first question is, did you even send him? Does he even know your numbers yet? We're like, what do you mean? That was a very short email, so don't know all the details. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of what you can expect when you put your business out there in this price range that we're talking about.
You're not wrong, especially in Main Street, which we're focusing on today. I know I said lower middle market a little earlier, but I think Main Street is the best place to start because it's kind of build into what we're going to get to. With Main Street, now, a lot of people say, I have a buyer for my business, right? We had a client of ours that we have listed a restaurant. It's like, I have a buyer. I'm like, okay, we'll have one of my guys go meet with him, talk, what's going on. Oh, well, this person got a lot of money from an inheritance and they already bought a house with 20 acres. And so we're like, so did they spend all their money? Do you know how much money they even have available liquid? Like, what is a lot? What is a lot of money, right? What is it? That's a very vague term. And like you said, you separate the noise from the actual. It's very easy for someone to say, I want to buy your business. It's another thing to have the funding. And for private individuals, there's also a misconception from all the Instagram reels out there, from all the noise, as you put it, too, how you go about buying a business. A lot of people, they see these, oh, I should buy this. That'd be fun. I make my own money, be my own boss. They don't have a plan. As an owner, you have to realize there are 1,000 of those out there. For every 1,000 of those people, there's maybe 10 really good qualified, as we call closers, people that can buy your business. So we talk about the private individual. The next level down from that is the unfunded buyers and the lifestyle seekers. These are people who, for lack of better words, really want to be in control, right, Chris? They want to own a business. They want to have that power. They want to have that enjoyment of doing their own deal. But a lot of them are not psychologically ready to do that. It looks nice. It sounds nice. They think the boss's job is easy, but they've never done the actual steps, like you said, to do their homework to how I'm going to run this company. Do I have a business plan? I have ever made a business plan in my life besides maybe once in college 20 years ago. If you put your business out there as an owner, you're going to get swamped by those people because everyone wants to take a look and have a conversation. You don't have time to have 20 conversations a week. You don't. I mean, how often do we spend time vetting these people? Within 10 minutes, we know there's a good chance this person's never going to buy a business, right? Just by the questions they ask. So that leads you into two different categories. You have the opportunists and the serious buyers. Opportunists are what, Chris? They are people who look for struggling business or businesses that are out there. They'll put an offer together, but they're not going to give you the best price, hoping that you just want out. Or B, the serious buyer who's, hey, look, I've made a commitment to be in business. I'm meeting with a guy next Monday. He's like, hey, I tried 4 years ago. I was a lifestyle seeker. He told me I came in not fully funded, prepared. 4 years later, I've learned a hard lesson. I need to have my money ready. If I use the word investors without anything to back it up, I sound like I don't have capital. I've got capital ready. But I want to talk to you about getting financing lined up. What do I need to do? Who do I need to speak with?
Yeah.
All the right questions. Let's go get lunch. Let's talk about how to get you set up financially at the SBA to parlay your ownership, CEO experience of a small company into buying your own operation. By doing this, you're going to be so much more prepared. Have your homework done, have your financials in order, have your cash flow. And if you're getting money from investors, if they're going to give it to you and gift it to you, have that declared and understood with the SBA. Because you and I know they have a dead period of waiting and clawback to check all those numbers. You can't just say, oh, Uncle John, give me $100,000 check and I'm going to go use it.
Right.
It's not that simple. We know that, right? They will back check that money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You talk about lifestyle buyers. These lifestyle buyers, they love falling in love with the idea of owning a business, just like you said, whether it's something small like a coffee shop or a flower boutique or something they feel like if they're in a corporate job and they have no other skills, they're just looking for something. What could I do? What could my wife help me with? But what happens is they balk when they see what day-to-day operations look like. They start talking about it's a 40, 50-hour week for the owner. I thought I was just buying a coffee shop where all the kids run the company. That's typically not it. There are those companies, and right, there's sometimes a number two, but on the opposite side is the opportunists like that you talk about. They're always looking for a deal, right? What did they always want right off the top? They want to know how much the seller is going to sell or finance. They're going to come in with an aggressive low ball offer, and then you got your serious buyers. I know you're going to dive into that, but yeah, you got the lifestyle buyers, you got the opportunists, and now you got serious buyers too.
No, and it's tough because sometimes some deals have to have a lot of seller financing to get them done, just the way the books are done. The opportunists see that. They understand they've looked before. This isn't their first search, right? The lifestyle ones, and we'll make a point too, is they don't understand financials very often. So when they get into the nitty gritty of the next phase, it's scary because they don't understand it or just, I thought cash flow meant I made $150,000 net profit. No, that's owner compensation, interest, depreciation. We can go down the list, right? Add backs. And that's hard for a non-business owner to fully understand, or especially somebody who's never been in management and handled P&Ls or tax returns or seen income statements. We can go down the list. Serious buyers typically understand that, or at least they don't understand it. They commit to learning. And I talked to you about this a while back, but I'll bring it up here for serious buyers and closers. It's going to lead into a great analogy that I want people to, if you're listening out there, this is when you want to listen really, really, really hard. They're interested people. They're committed people. and there are obsessed people. People who get deals done aren't just committed, they're obsessed on getting a deal done. It's going to consume what they want to do. Interested people are the lifestyle seekers. Yeah, it sounds great. I'm curious. I might go click on Biz Buy Sell. Committed people are, I'm tired of my job. I want to find a business. I'm going to start looking and I'm going to actually try for a while, but I'm never going to fully commit to actually wanting to make an offer, or I'm going to find everything wrong with the deal, or I'm going to not want to go do SBA finance. I'm going to want all these extra, extenuating circumstances to occur. It's got to have a manager. It's got to have all the perfect setup. You're committed. You're not serious. When you become obsessed and you focus and learn and dive in and want to have conversations and you really you make it, I'm going to find a business the next year. You will become a closer. You've gone from a serious buyer to a closer. Someone who wants to be a business ownership, has gotten pre-approved by the SBA, has done your homework, has talked to brokers, and actually when they say, hey, you need to go check this business out or look at these financials, it doesn't take you 2 weeks to open the data room. You've looked at every document in the data room and you've read through it and you're asking solid questions. Those are people that owners want to talk to. Serious buyers are good to have conversations with, but you can tell a closer, an obsessed person when you see it. You and I both know we get that phone call. The difference between an interested party, a committed party, and then a real closer, right? We know. You can tell by the questions they ask, the diligence they're putting in, and the fabric they set up. Good closers get deals done. They're realistic on value. They understand what financials are going to look like, and they don't ask dumb questions like, what if the chef quits? What do I do? That's what an interested person said. A committed person is going to say, what if I can't get a lease, or, if I can't, increase the space? Decent question to ask, but you're finding excuses. A committed person is going to say, okay, who are the previous two chefs been? How long have they been with the company? And what is their specialty? And if they quit, do you have anybody you've already had contacts with or had previous interviews with that I can then access? Or I have my own people, I'll bring them in. Does all three of those sound very different from each other?
Right.
Committed.
Yeah, closers are the gold standard, right? And you
That's
said
right.
sometimes I don't see it right away, but I see it pretty quickly in the process when I
Mm-hmm.
know I've got a closer or a potential closer. Sometimes they hold their cards close to their vest, right? And you can't tell on that first call. But like you
Mm-hmm.
said, those questions that they start soon asking, and then when they say, "Hey, can we set up a call with the buyer after they've asked those questions?" Not
Mm-hmm.
those guys that want to talk to the owner right off the top. That's usually actually a red
Or just
flag.
review financials, right? I
Yeah,
just got to see the
right.
P&Ls. I can't do anything else. I'll look at P&Ls.
Yeah. But these are the buyers who understand the business. They respect our time as brokers. They respect the owner's time, and
Mm-hmm.
they're financially prepared, and they move with purpose. I think that's the biggest thing is you can tell
Well
the questions
said.
that they're asking or why they're asking them. They're not diving into granular due diligence right from the start. The questions they're asking are the ones that need to be answered so they can even structure the deal properly. That I
Yes.
respect. And as a seller, learning to spot these different profiles that we're talking about and how to respond accordingly, that's one of the most valuable skills in dealing with these types of buyers that we've mentioned across the gamut.
You're not wrong. So that parlays perfectly into the next kind of thing we want to discuss is the red flags that buyers that aren't serious are going to show you. You hit the nail on the head, asking too granular a detail. My one I know is got to see the P&Ls before I can do anything. If all you care about is a P&L statement, you're never going to buy a business. A P&L does not sell a company. And a P&L is going to have flaws with it. So if you're basing your entire assumption on your time matching a P&L, you're going to have a problem. Well, the broker said the cash flow is this and the cash flows derived from P&Ls, tax returns, and other documents. It's not going to all be on just a P&L. And if a P&L is all you need to make a decision, that's also a red flag. Let's talk about some other red flags. The first thing is for any buyer, if they're not willing to sign a non-disclosure, get out of the door. As an owner, never let anyone see anything proprietary or even have discussions without that. If you don't use a broker, just free great advice right there. For the love of God, do not let someone look at your stuff without an NDA signed. Just on top of that, I'm a parlay again. Show proof of funds. Show capacity to perform. How often, Chris, do I get? Well, I've got investors. I mentioned that earlier, right? About lifestyle buyers. When I hear there were investors, I told the guy I'm meeting for lunch next Monday. I said, 4 years ago when you came in our office and you said you had investors, what my guys immediately thought? You have no capital,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I've been doing this 13 years. I'm along in the tooth. I'm 35, but I'm just 13 years. You know how many times I've heard the word investors came into a deal and actually put money up and signed a non-disclosure and did a deal with us? You want to guess how many times, Chris? One.
I love
And
when
it was daddy supporting his son out of college. That's what the investor was. It wasn't some third-party capital that was raised. It was It was dad.
No, I love when interested buyers sign the non-disclosure form, and then at the bottom we ask for financial qualifications, and it says how much do you have on hand, and somebody will put $5 million, and it says source of capital, and it says investors way too many times.
God
It's
does
not
it.
sitting in my bank. It's not sitting in my bank account, but I have access to 5 million, and it's coming from investors, and it's just like you said, maybe one time out of 100, 1,000, it might actually be the case. But for the most part, and we're talking to business owners who are thinking about selling their company and maybe even trying to do it on their own. Be leery of that. That is a huge red flag.
And I would tell somebody, if they have investors that are actually serious, you should have some form of committed capital in writing from them or a pledge or something. If you're a buyer out there and you want to go that route and you've got investors, get them to sign a document that says, I'm going to commit X amount of money, or I'm going to do this, or have something other than just, I'll put up money. Because me and my brokers talk about this all the time. Gary Cow in my office mentioned a great point. He goes, I've got friends like, oh yeah, you find the right deal. I've got investors. I'll get my team together and we'll buy it. And it's like, if you haven't even had an honest discussion besides hanging around the bar stool, drinking a Miller Lite, saying, hey, I'll put money up, sure, you're not serious. You know how I know? Because when I call you and I say, hey, I need $250,000 to put it in an offer, whoa, hang on a second. I need to see all this. I'm not comfortable with, again, would you give somebody who you talked to once $100,000 just to buy a business with nothing else, just on a lark? You're not going to do that. And as a seller, you've got to spot those red flags. There's nothing wrong with having investors and people pooling their money together to buy a deal. But if their goal is to get money from investors and then go get a loan, that's going to be exceptionally hard because the new SBA standard operating procedure changes are going to limit how many people can be involved in the deal. And now all the personal guarantees on top of that weren't there before. Commercial lending is going to say, that's cute. Please walk. So just know that buyer is probably not a good fit for you. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's going to be limited, right?
Yeah, and you need to get proof of funds, right?
You
That's what
do.
we're talking about here. But buyers who are serious will understand that it's a standard to provide a financial statement or
That's
at
right.
least a letter of pre-qualification before receiving any kind of
Mm-hmm.
sensitive details on the business.
That's
If a
right.
buyer keeps asking for detailed financials from the owner or operational breakdowns, but they're not giving you
Or
anything
meet
back
the
in return,
employees.
yeah, they are not ready and they are not serious. They're just kind of in. We see this all the time. We see buyers who they just want to research. Makes them feel like they're in the game. They're doing deals, but they're never going to
I've
pull
had
the
buyers ask
trigger.
for financials on deals going to close to practice. I've been asked. I'm like, no, you cannot practice on a deal going to close for $4 million. No,
Yeah,
you can't do that. That's someone's proprietary tax information. You want to do an exercise? Go to school.
yeah. No, I like when I get emails and it's from an email domain with .edu at the end. Even if it's somebody's graduated, please do not send brokers emails from your college email address. It makes it
Mm-hmm.
look like you're doing some kind of research project on this, and it's a red flag
Yep.
for me.
I've actually been asked by students doing research projects. I've seen those, and I'm like, I'm happy to speak, but you're not going to get proprietary tax returns. Oh, really? Yes.
Jeez.
I appreciate the boldness, and I appreciate trying to
Sure.
figure it out, but there are levels here that need to be and layers of protection owners and trust in us, and this is
Yeah.
one that we have to say no to.
Right.
Another thing I want to add to your points, we talk about red flags, is dragging their feet and avoiding committing to the next steps. I feel like often buyers have a vision of how they want to go about doing it, and brokers have another, and sellers have another vision. But you have to have reasonable timelines of getting the deal done. And I'm going to give a great example. We have a fellow coming in today who had inquired in about 2.5 months ago. Didn't have exactly what he was looking for. He's a manager at a local store. Decided it wasn't the best, he's going to wait a little bit. We reached back out about a month ago and said, hey, look, we got this new listing. It fits your background really well. Okay, you know what? I'm going to come talk about it. It went great. Scheduled to buy, sell. Went and met the owner at the place of business. Had great conversation. They were able to speak the lingo, get a, familiarity with each other. He says, give me a little while to think about it. 2 weeks goes by. He reaches back out. He says, hey, I want to come in tomorrow. I want to talk about what the next steps are for an offer or what I need to do. That is being a smart buyer. You're thinking through your process. You're doing your own homework. You're taking time not to make an emotional, rash decision. That's a good sign of a good buyer. Now, he may not be able to close yet. We don't know for sure. There's a lot more to go down the road. One, get an offer and acceptance. You still got to do some financing. But taking the proper timeline steps, right, Chris? If someone comes in day one, wants to throw an LOI in your face, be wary. No one should make you an LOI on the spot without even having a conversation with you. They shouldn't, because they don't know your business and they're not going to uphold that. They're going to, I guarantee you, that LOI they give you is going to be torn to shreds by the time you get to the closing table. There's 100% guarantee, right?
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
No, and you also need to be leery of the guy who says he wants to pay half cash right now and close in 2 weeks. That's just
But yeah,
that's
gotta love
that's
those
unrealistic.
guys.
That's somebody who doesn't understand how the process works. They don't understand how acquisitions work and due diligence. Those happen in very small deals, and even in
Mm-hmm.
small deals, you need to be leery of that because it could be a trap. It could be just you don't know what's going to happen in those kind of situations.
Mm-hmm. And someone moving too quick. It's okay for a buyer to fall in love with a business and be excited and want to go. It's okay to want to have times of the emphasis to get it done. But that buyer needs to have enough time to make organic decisions. And on top of that, do some homework so that they believe what they're putting on paper when it's time to have that LOI or offer, they stand by. If you rush the process, you don't have time to really pull back the covers and take a good look. And then you're going to increase the chances of that buyer finding red flags or finding problems, wanting to renegotiate, or just having issues with the deal and derailing it. It's like a marriage. Do you want to marry the girl you met on the first date? I would highly recommend against that. You need to give it time for the relationship to build. It's silly, but it's true. You need to let that buyer have time to think about this deal, because I've had this happen this year. We had a buyer come in, was ready to make me on a watch tier we got, was all excited, had done his homework, put the offer and got excited, did it. That 24 hours later, he pulled his offer because he talked to somebody who gave him some bad advice. Don't do a lease space. Well, you can't buy the building it's located in, so it's going to be leased. Well, I just can't. I talk to some people and I can't do that. So that's somebody that got excited, made a rash decision, and then got cold feet immediately. Now, luckily, it was 24 hours, not 2 weeks in. But that's what you have to watch out for. And he gave all the right cues as a serious buyer. It just shows he wasn't a closer.
Yeah.
It happens.
I'd say the other one is watch the responsiveness. If you get
Mhm.
started in a deal, they make an offer, you accept it. Serious buyers stick to their timelines. If you got
Or
somebody
try
who's
their
dragging
best.
their feet, if they're dragging their feet on setting meetings, responding to documents, if they take a week just to reply to your email or text that, hey, I got this and I'm moving forward, that text is so quick these days. If they're not responding within 4 hours, you probably should take that as, I don't want to say it's a red flag at that point, but a 24
Something's
hours
up.
goes by. Yeah, something's going on. Especially if you
Unless
guys
you
are
know
working it.
otherwise. Like, hey, they're on
Yeah,
vacation
yeah,
that week. Or like, hey, like I'm out of town for a few days. I won't be able to do a lot. Okay, cool. Transparency. You said it great
yeah,
last podcast.
yeah,
Transparency, right?
sure. Yes. So chances are, if they're not working very on a tight timeline to move the deal forward and get things done, chances are they're going to disappear eventually, and or the deal's going to fall apart. Because I see it time and time again where buyers just kind of they stop responding to emails, or they don't meet this timeline of getting a
Mm-hmm.
pre-approval letter, and now we got to send out. Hey, we've seen this one before where you got to send out a extension, then you got to send out another extension and another extension,
God,
and
those wars.
eventually everybody's going to be deal fatigued. If brokers are involved, they're going to be like, okay, I'm tired of putting these
And it
extensions
also
together.
allows for renegotiation of leverage,
It
right?
does.
Not to cut you off, but it is.
Absolutely.
I've seen buyers and sellers start trying to play a leverage game. Well, if we got to go 3 more weeks and I want this consideration, and it's like,
Ooh, yeah.
now you're renegotiating your own deal. That's a dangerous road to go down for no good reason. Well, my time's wasted. And people start feeling offended.
Oh yeah.
And I
Yeah.
get it. You said it, deal fatigue, frustrations.
Egos get involved.
Deal killer number 1 is ego. I think
Yeah.
more so than financials is ego.
Yeah. If you feel insulted or feel like your time's being wasted, or you feel like you're owed something for another week
Or
going
you know
by, and
better.
now you're getting upset. You tell the buyer he's got to pay another $10,000 because a week went by, because that's what you feel like you're due for this week that's been wasted. He's not going to
Gosh.
pay it, and now you've got a
You've
heated
shown your own
exchange.
ignorance.
Yeah.
And that leads to, I guess, our next major topic is, what are traits of a good closer and how to avoid these problems, right? You said it best. Communications 1, transparency. I highlighted on another key one, which is getting your financials in order and getting, like you said, pre-approval letter. That's true. Knowing what your actual limit is and risk tolerance on top of what you can be loaned. What's your risk tolerance? Nothing I hate more than, I'm about to pre-approve up to $5 million. I'll do anything. Okay. Let's be clear. I doubt you're going to do $5 million. You're probably going to want to do around 2 to 4. Every time I hear I'm approved up to $5 million, I hear, well, I'd rather do 2 to 4 million. It's funny how that pre-approval letter's here, but you want to fall somewhere around here.
Hmm.
I think you said it best, returning requests for documentation. We have an automated NDA system for those who don't know. You click on a lead, the NDA is going out almost instantaneously. There is no reason that NDA should sit 5 days in your inbox before it's returned to me. If it's because you don't like it, that's one thing. If you don't have questions, that's another. We're available. It's synced to our emails. So we can respond very promptly. You can call us. We're going to reach out to you anyway. Those are signs of good closers get that done quickly and to communicate effectively when doing so. And I would even say the most important aspect of a really good closer, and you kind of highlighted earlier, and I want to reemphasize everybody listening, identifying what you want to be in as a business owner or as a prospect to become a business owner and knowing what it's going to take to get there. Having done your homework, right, Chris? Having thought it through the process, knowing what, and spoken to maybe your lender, or if you need a lender, our lender, to know what other minutia of details that are important to have to get a deal structured. Nothing worse than I've had buyers say, well, I want to do cash, SBA financing, and an earnout. The SBA doesn't underwrite earnouts. So you've already told me you talked to your lender. You have no idea, either you really didn't talk to your lender or you haven't done your homework at all, because an earnout's not going to happen on an SBA loan. So now you've shown your cards. A true closer is, hey, you know what? I'm pre-approved with the $5 million. I only want to spend $2 million. I want to be in this industry segment. I want to spend this much down payment. I've got this much reserve capital for working capital. If not, I want to negotiate X timeline of training because I know I'm going to need this much help. Now you've told me 4 or 5 key ingredients that you know because you've already thought about putting an offer together, what deal structure you want to have, and what your price range is. I can now help you formulate that, right, Chris? That gives me the building blocks to success and gives you a better chance of actually closing a deal you're going to want to buy.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with, you mentioned some great points about closers, but one of the biggest things I talk about with closers is they're collaborative. They work with everybody. They're working with the buyer. They're working with the broker. They're not butting heads on every chance they get.
It's not my way or the highway.
Yeah, they're not pushing back against everything that comes across. They respect confidentiality. They understand timelines. They stay focused on getting to the finish line, right? That's the point of getting involved in a deal in the first place. Do you just want to waste time and look at a bunch of P&Ls and tax returns to say you did it? Or do you actually want to make money? And the only way to make money out of this whole time and that you're investing is to get to the finish line. And how do you do that? You work with these people. You work with the broker. You work with the seller.
That's right.
The closers are the buyers who make deals happen. And that's what I would say the biggest thing, the biggest difference about everybody else we mentioned and closers. Closers know how to get things done. And you can tell it immediately when you start working one. I know you do. So everything about the sale process gets a little smoother for us. It makes our job easier because we're working with somebody who's a professional at doing this. Yeah, even if this is their first time, they're pretty much a pro because they prepared themselves. You can become a pro your first time. You've talked to that SBA lender. You've thought about what you want. You've worked out your financials internally as a family or investor, whatever the case may be. You know what your risk tolerance is. You know what your debt levels that you're willing to accept are, and you're ready to go. You're committed. You're committed to the process before you even begin. You just got to find the right opportunity. And I get it. If we show you a business and it's got some red flags and you decide it's not you shouldn't buy everything just because you're looking at it the first time. That's not what we're saying here. But when everything aligns and you're not looking for those granular details to say, oh, red flag, you're out, because rent increased 5% last year or some silly margin.
Had an inaccuracy by 2%. This is too scary for me. I got to walk.
Yeah. I found it. I found the devil in the details. I gotta kill this deal. Broker didn't find it, and I found it. No,
I'm smarter. I'm gonna recast this based on the 5% increase next year because of the inflation. And really, you didn't make what you said you made. Like all you've shown is you found time how to waste everybody's time.
That's right. So anyway,
that is true.
Closers, they know how to get things done.
Well, I'll take it back to my original point too. They've become obsessed with the deal. They're past committed. I've seen people who are committed make offers and then, like you said, start wasting time, get disenfranchised, don't want to deal with it. The obsessed buyer, this is the most important thing on their calendar. And everything is about getting the cash flow. And they understand that the quicker I buy this business, the more money I'm going to make. That letting months go by because I'm dragging my feet is a loss of cash flow. How often do we see that? Because people complain about, well, I need to have this $10,000 correction on the deal because it's going to cost me money. Had you bought the business, you would have made $20,000 in that time span. So you actually lost $10,000 more than you think you're losing. It's so funny. Ryan Cave in South Florida owns a couple offices with Sunbelt. Made that point on LinkedIn the other day. Somebody was complaining about this tiny metric. And he goes, yeah, and the same buyer bought that business would have made $50,000 in cash flow. They wasted a month in $2,000 of legal costs to lose out on $45,000, $48,000 to $50,000. You know what I mean? Like that. Closers have perspective.
Yeah,
They're obsessed and they want to get it done.
We're all limited in the amount of time we have on this earth and the amount of time we have to work and our energy. If you're going to waste 2 or 3 months over the smallest detail, you're exactly right. You're losing cash flow. Sometimes I move a little too quickly. I'll say it, but
We
it's
both
for that
have.
reason. Yeah, I'm taking advantage of what I see as, hey, I know I could argue over this $2 or $3,000, or I can go out and make 10. It's stuff like that all the time.
Got to pick your battles.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's true, and we're not here to talk down on buyers. Let me state that real clear to people listening. You can hear the frustration and laughter in our voice at certain times because we've been through these scenarios and don't want you to go through them, and that's why we're talking about this. And as a buyer, when you're putting your money on the line, you feel a bit entitled to get what you want. I understand that philosophy. I understand that emotion, but you also have to realize it's not about you. There's a lot of people in play in this deal. And if you treat it like you're the most important person and only your opinion matters, you're never going to be a committed, serious. You're never going to be an obsessed and serious buyer. You're going to be just someone who wants to play dress up. And it's funny. I see people who've inquired on our site for 3 years, never done something. And then we have a guy that the first day to get on the site goes, you know what? I really want to buy that business. And they'll come in, do everything right, even if it's their first time. And I've seen guys who are so sophisticated, waste opportunity. And the guy who's never done it walks in because he has a different mindset, gets exactly what he wants, and is having a great return because of it. It happens all the time. All the time. So my advice to especially to Main Street sellers, where it's going to be harder to put a deal together. Lower middle market deals have more flexibility because there's more cash flow to eat debt service. We've talked about that on previous podcasts. There's room for financing on bigger deals. Smaller deals, it's really going to be a match of character and available funding that's there, and you have to be very specific. You want upfront buyers. You want to ask the right questions. We've mentioned the details before. Your time is valuable, and that's why I think buyers don't forget the most. The seller brought us in, one, to help them buy the business because that's what is it really worth, right, Chris? The second is their time. We are the gatekeeper and the filters of time, and we help give good business advice to people looking to buy. I can't imagine times people have come to our office wanting to sell a business who got the itch, talked to an owner, bought the business, and then realized they made a massive mistake because no one handled it properly. They wasted investment money. They did everything wrong they could have done wrong, right? And now it's, man, this is the way it should have been done the first time. I should have called y'all. I never should have tried to sell it myself. I never should have tried to buy the business on my own. Now I've got this liability that's losing money. I've got a lease I've committed to. My wife's furious at me for wasting our retirement money. How often do we hear that? How often do we see those scenarios? So as a seller, please do not jump the gun if you're going to do it yourself. Get someone like us involved who's going to help screen all those issues we just talked about and structure a deal for you. Because that's what your end goal is, to get out for the best possible price. And a best possible price and a good deal aren't always the same thing. I know that's going to sound harsh to say. It's true. You want a proper deal because a deal is what gets your deal done. You can want $1 million for your company, but if you get 900 in the proper walkout structure, you actually got money in your pocket. So still in the company, never being out from your job.
Yeah, and I would say this to Main Street business owners who are thinking about selling, preparing to sell. Maybe they're thinking about doing it themselves. Or maybe they've got that, like I mentioned before, they've got that guy who reached out and he wants to make an offer on it. I will tell you this. This is the biggest point I can make today. Attention on your business is not the same thing as intention. Just because somebody walks
Well
in,
said.
but just because somebody walks in and wants to talk to you and wants to make an offer, it does not mean they're capable of buying your business. And that's what having a broker like
Or really
myself,
serious.
Brandon, or any other broker in your area, reputable broker, screening buyers is critical. Absolutely critical. You can waste so much time in your life if you just let somebody in and they give you some backstory about how they owned. I've got buyers telling me they used to own 80 companies or something like that. I dig in, I do the financial due diligence.
Not
Maybe
even
they've
close.
owned 2 or 3, but they're talking about their previous experience with another wealth management company where they're taking credit for 100 people and what 100 people were doing. So you can't take somebody at their word. We've all seen those people who exaggerate the truth or just flat out lie. Having a broker who screens these buyers, someone who checks their financials, confirms pre-qualification, and keeps focused on the right people. That is so key. Like I said before, we're going to have 100 interested buyers for a great business in the first month. How are you going to weed that down quickly if you don't have a system and a process and time to do it? You've
You're
got to
not
have
wrong.
you got to dedicate time to looking at these guys and being able to screen them quickly and knocking out the tire kickers and the time wasters very quickly. So, what kind of business are you looking for? These are the kind of questions to ask buyers. Have you spoken with an SBA lender? How are you
Hmm.
planning to finance the purchase? I could add 10, 15 more questions to that list. And that's what we're
Easily.
going to do to make sure that we're moving forward with the right buyers. We want to get that 100. We
Hmm.
want to get that down to 3 or 4. And then that's a very, very critical decision is which one out of these 3 or 4 is the most likely to be that gold standard closer that we talked about in this podcast. Which one can we move forward with that can actually get this deal done? And that's where you're going to rely on our instincts, the things
Hmm.
we've seen, our gut, and just kind of all the qualification checks that we've done to know which buyer is the best one to move forward with who can get this deal done.
You're not wrong. I'll add this too. Strategic buyers are much more common in the lower middle market space, but in the main street level, there are some quote unquote strategic buyers that do buy competition up. What you don't want to do is and you make a point with the NDA, strategic buyers that come in at the lower middle market level are going to have trouble getting financed sometimes. Let's just be honest. It's going to be a harder deal. Do not let that competition know what you're doing without the proper paperwork. Do not let that competition plant seeds in your brain. Because I've had a lot of times I hear, well, the guy down the street said he'd buy my business. And then I finally went to him after a year and he's like, I don't want it. He was bluffing you. He was seeing what your timeline was. How long are you going to be competing with me? It could be a mirage for all you know. That's why you get proper paperwork signed up. And like Chris says, you let us use those 10 to 20 questions to make sure it's a good fit before we release any information. Because be honest, if I had a dollar for every time somebody said, I want to buy a business, I wouldn't have to sell a business to make a living, Chris. I could just live off the royalties right there. It's easy to say, it's a lot harder to do. It's even harder to get it done. And I'll hit back again. They're either interested, they're committed, or they're obsessed. Those are the 3 stages of really putting things into action. On top of that, what kind of buyer they fall into. That's our job to get that help. Let's say it's part of our job. Valuing businesses, there's a bunch of things we do, but that is probably, if not behind valuing business, the second most important part of our job. Because if we can't find the right person for you, you're never going to get it sold. And you have to trust your gut too as a seller. There may be things you notice that we don't notice because you've been in the industry. And a strategic buyer, for example, I had a deal on HVAC. We had 2 buyers come in. Just to your exact point, Chris, both different qualifications. One in the industry, one not in the industry. One the seller liked, one the seller didn't get a good feeling from. And he was like, yes, I'm taking maybe less money for the full package, but I know this buyer can do well. Buyer B wants to bring somebody else in to run it. He's going to kill it. I don't trust that. I think that model's going to fail. I know this guy can do it. He's giving me better terms. He's already prepared. He's got his financing in place. Doesn't have to go find financing. He took that deal. And it wasn't tire care. This guy came in ready to go. Pre-qual letter. The buyer was excited, knew what he wanted, was in the industry, in the region, ready to go.
Yep.
It matters. And he got it
No, it
done.
absolutely does.
And he stayed on constant communication the whole way through. There was never a moment where that buyer was like, well, I got to talk to somebody else, or I got to go out of town to do this. It was, this is all I'm working towards. Besides running my day-to-day business is all I want. And that showed at the very end when it came time to make the final decisions, right? We're talking 6-figure differences too, mind you, for
Sure.
package consideration. Multiple 6 figures. It
Yeah,
matters.
it's not just about finding a buyer, right? It's about finding the right buyer. I like your points. It's like a lot of sellers and even clients, they think our deal's done when we find the buyer. That is literally
That is just the beginning.
that's almost the easiest part of my process is finding buyers, quote unquote. Finding the right buyer, that's a much larger portion of the deal. But the
It is.
majority of inquiries I'll receive, or as a business owner, if you're selling your business yourself, a lot of those inquiries are going to go absolutely nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them aren't even going to follow up after they sign the NDA and you send them the teaser about the business. But the sooner
Or
you
worse.
learn to identify who the time wasters are, who the non-closers are, and you align yourself with serious prepared buyers, the more successful and less stressful this exit and transition is going to be. You're not just
It's true.
selling a business. You're not just selling a business. That's not what this is about. You're handing over something you've built. Getting a check at the end of the deal, that's great. That's what you're looking for. But
It's a
if you've been
legacy.
if you built this business for 15, 20, 30, I've had businesses for 40 years. You're handing over that, and you've got to have that right buyer for that. Just like your HVAC guy, he knew, and that's what I love, a collaborative process with my clients, with sellers, is like, hey, you tell me everything you know. I'm going to tell you everything I've seen and done in my time as a broker, and let's make this work. Let's get a smooth transition for you. Let's make this a
Mm-hmm.
seamless process, and make sure that we do this right. And that's what this process deserves. This process deserves focus. It preserves protection, and you got to have the right team. It's not just about us as brokers. You got to have the right legal team, which we can recommend. There's got to be the right financial team in place, right? Whether that's CPAs or even the bank. And you and I could have a whole. I think we've had podcasts on bringing in the wrong bank and how that can derail a deal.
God, we
So
went we went through that hell one time, right? Me and you together. That was
yeah,
the
we did.
longest deal of my life.
I still tell that story. In fact, I told that story 2 weeks ago to a client. I
PTSD,
said,
baby.
yeah, I said when we work with a buyer, they have to be, what's the PLP certified SBA. I'm not sure if that's the right term, but they have to be a preferred lender with the SBA.
Yeah.
I will not accept. In fact, I will not
Nationwide preferred
accept.
lender.
I will not accept another buyer bringing in somebody who's has to run
Local
everything
bank.
through the SBA. Yeah, yeah. So look
No,
for
you're
those
right.
red flags.
Those are red flags. And it
Absolutely.
is, and I understand as an owner, you don't want to miss an opportunity to sell. Let's say, like, we didn't say that, but it feels like that this might be my buyer. Yes, but would you rather go on a long shot of a 5% chance or a 50% chance? If you're gambling your money, what do you want to gamble your money and time on? You would take the more solid bet. It doesn't mean the low chance shot won't make it. And when you mentioned the 100 people that inquire, good buyers, how many do we have that fit that you maybe could do it on an off Sunday? Maybe Tulane upsets Alabama in football. Yeah, maybe you can, but they've got the choice of picking from LSU, Georgia, or Texas to line up against Alabama. Who are they going to pick, right, Chris?
That's right. That's right.
Maybe not Arch Manning right now, Texas, but we'll leave that out today. I'm sorry,
Hey, easy.
horns down, but horns down. But it's true though, is it not? And the same goes for a bank. Oh, I'm going to use my local community bank to go through an SBA department. That's a 5% chance. Would you rather use a nationwide preferred lender who's done this 5,000 times and can skip the SBA regional office?
Mm-hmm.
This is who you should use. There are layers to understanding buyers, not just their ability, but the other contextual cues that come in. Next week, we're going to talk a lot about lower middle market more. We kind of hinted at it earlier. We did a lot of Main Street today. We're going to really focus on lower middle market. And you're going to be surprised with those who listen in the dramatic differences in what we're going to say. There'll be similar buyer profiles, but there'll be some more nuances, especially at the strategic level and the private equity level, that you're going to be really interested in hearing from us as well. We could have combined it today, but we really wanted to keep this focused on Main Street because it is a different ball game. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just different. And that's what's important to understand in these types of transactions, that there are different levels of sophistication, requirements, and execution styles. And if you're going to grow your business and it's not there in lower middle market level today, take what you learned on this podcast, take next week's, and put that together. You'll be surprised. Anything else, Christopher? I think we nailed it today for Main Street.
I think we got it.
Fantastic. For all you out there listening, I am Brandon Bourgeois. That is Chris Sater. You can find us anytime, anywhere, somewhatnetwork.com, or call our offices for any advice. We'd love to talk to you, help you, and guide you. So on that note, I will see you next time, Christopher, and tune in next week for the lower middle market version of buyers. Y'all take care.